Welcome to The World As I Like It To Be. I'm your host, Eric Donnelly Small.
The Squid Game. It's the number one show on Netflix, and people are obsessed. So is yours truly. What's the plot of the series? What are some of the themes and messages? And what does Squid Game and 2020 Academy Award winner Parasite have in common? But first, the 45th president held a rally over the weekend and once again threw doubt on the 2020 election. Fiona Hill appeared on Face the Nation and says, "We're already in a constitutional crisis." Are things really as bad as Hill says? So on today's episode of The World As I Like It To Be, the Squid Game and the looming crisis on our democracy. Don't forget you can find out more about this show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The World As I Like.
Now, what about Squid Game? What is that?
America's in a lot of debt right now. Should we do a Squid Game?
Stay tuned. So, as much as I love to talk about politics on this podcast, I am going to sort of steer a little bit away from politics. To be honest with you, I found the whole thing depressing over the weekend. So I want to do a little bit about some of what happened over the weekend because I think it's important with respect to Donald Trump, particularly with respect to this rally he had. And it's important because Fiona Hill has a book coming out, or has a book out right now. She was on Face the Nation. I'm going to play a clip of that. But as well as Chris Krebs on the same show. And credit to Mediaite that found and pulled this clip because it's so important. It is so it's so important because these are two people who work in intelligence. Fiona Hill in particular is a foreigner. And one of the things that she says on Face the Nation, which I think is extremely important, is that people who are foreigners that have come from authoritarian places, they see exactly what's going on here. And one of the things she says, which is not in this clip, is that people should talk to foreigners who have come here, escaped from wherever. You could say Cuba, she came from parts of Europe, people who are Holocaust survivors, folks who are from parts of Africa that had, dictators. Because they have a very specific view of this. America's never sort of experienced what's happening right now. But they have Jews who have family, it doesn't have to be actually people who survived the Holocaust, but some who have family members that are old enough to remember their parents being a part of the Holocaust, or them being children during that time. They know exactly what is going on here with Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And they are, as Fiona Hill says, shocked that people cannot see what's happening here and are not doing what they need to do to be prepared for what's coming. And this is where I really, amongst everything else, the thing that bothers me the most about, in particular, Joe Manchin, but Kristen Sinema could be thrown into this as well, is that they're blocking any opportunity to stop what is coming. This is one reason I kind of call Joe Manchin the Neville Chamberlain of the Senate, because he is more about trying to find a way to appease the Republican Party and to find a way to find common ground and bipartisan and all this kind of stuff that was of value probably 20 years ago, but is really now a hindrance. And unfortunately, it's to our detriment that people right now are trying to go and find ways to give the Republican Party what it wants, give Donald Trump what he wants, in order to sort of stave off or calm the waters, as I think that Joe Manchin sees it. He's trying to calm things so that things don't get out of hand. One of the reasons why I say that is that he says it. There's an interview where he talks about how after January 6th, he became even more interested in calming the waters. But You go to this rally and you take a look at this rally that Donald Trump went to a few days ago, and you want to talk about calming anything. This thing is so much worse than it was before.
The Democrat Socialist bill also includes a $1.3 billion payoff to the fake news industry. These people, but we're giving them money. They don't deserve it. By subsidizing and hiring.
I mean, I really don't want to spend too much time elevating what Donald Trump says. And I think that people are, to some extent, absolutely shocked at the fact that he is just out there just lying. And people are just eating it up. This video is a clip. It's from YouTube. I don't remember where I got it from. I'm sorry, whoever channel this is. But it is a very, I don't know if sad is the word for it. It's beyond sad. It's frightening. And when you just hear how much he is continuing to call into count the election.
Of COVID in 2021, with the vaccines, with the therapeutics, more people died in 2021 than in all of 2020.
That's a total lie right there. I mean, it is a total. It is not even a very good lie. I mean, you could almost say that the man shows how much he really wasn't paying attention in 2020. We were lost like what, 500,000 people in 2020 while he was president. You know, what did we lose today? What are we at? 700,000. So what? We lost 300,000 within that time. And by the way, part of this includes the president, his time in office before he turned the keys over to Joe Biden. It's bad that we lost an additional 200,000, and I think it's, we're going to probably lose another 300, up to 300 maybe by the end of the year. But to say that we lost more now than we did then, it's just it's not just a lie; it's demonstrably untrue. And the fact that people are in that crowd believing that, or that one might think that they believe that, is disturbing. And I have to say that anything and everything that Manchin does and Sinema does to prevent Democrats from doing something about voting rights is helping Donald Trump. Anything that they're doing that is preventing us from doing anything about making sure that the elections are done in a free, fair, and a way that you don't get a whole lot of shenanigans going on where some board elected by a bunch of Republicans jump in and decide that they know better about how this election should have been run because their elected candidate didn't win. All of that is on the heads, as far as I'm concerned, of Manchin and Sinema and anyone who refused to change the filibuster rules in order to save our democracy. So, that's them. I want to get into this piece on Face the Nation, but I want to do some breaking news first because there is some stuff happening this morning that I sort of want to go over. And if you're a part of an airline right now, as much as anybody else, if you're on Southwest, that you can't get the hell out of there. There's something going on with Southwest flights that I'm sure the Republicans are going to try and blame Joe Biden on. But there is a sense that the Southwest is canceling a bunch of flights. And there is a sense that it has something to do with either their people are not COVID tested or there's a problem with their machinery. They're trying to blame the FAA. The FAA is saying that there's nothing going on. Plus the fact you've got all these other airlines that are having no issues, no problems at all. So it seems very clear that this is something exclusive to Southwest. But I want to see if there is any new news that is going on here. Canceled. This is out of. This is 37 minutes ago. NPR. Southwest disruptions follow weekends of cancellation. Southwest travelers are facing another day of disruptions. This is actually quite a shame because Southwest was one of those airliners that was owned by the workers, and they were one of the businesses that seemed to know how to do it right, how to treat their people right and their customers right. They were, I think, exemplary when it came to being on time. So anyway, Southwest travelers are facing another day of disruptions. The carrier suspended hundreds of additional flights on Monday after canceling and delaying thousands over the weekend, reportedly due to air traffic control issues and weather. The airline has canceled more than 355 flights and delayed another 581 as of Monday morning, according to online tracker Flight Aware. There are mixed messages about the root cause. The reason for the disruption depends on who you ask. Southwest blamed air traffic control issues. That same day, however, the FAA said that no FAA air traffic staffing shortages had been reported since Friday. Flight delays and cancellations occurred for a few hours on Friday in the afternoon or PM due to widespread severe weather, military training, and limited staffing in one area of Jacksonville en route center, it tweeted. Some airlines continued to experience scheduling changes due to aircraft and crews being out of place. So that is the FAA hitting Southwest for not having its crews. Some are speculating it has something to do with COVID right here. This guy does. Harvey, this guy who's the president of travel industry analyst at the Atmosphere Research Group, he suggested that some pilots are calling in sick or refusing to work in opposition to the COVID-19 vaccine mandate that Southwest announced earlier this month. Southwest executives and employees have denied that, even though the theory has been embraced by prominent conservatives, including Ted Cruz, which means absolutely nothing. Southwest Airlines Pilots Association said on Sunday that there are no work slowdowns or sickouts, either related to the recent mandatory vaccine mandate or otherwise. It's disputed the carrier's characterization of the reason for the weekend's disruptions. So, if you're trying to get a flight out and you're with Southwest, wow, I am sorry to hear that. The next thing is the Supreme Court, apparently, which I had no idea that there was anything on the docket. This is very, very brief little write-up in Yahoo News. I'm going to actually do a search on this. Supreme Court deals massive financial blow to organized labor. Supreme Court has dealt a major blow to organized labor in the Democratic Party by ruling that unions cannot charge fees to non-members for collective bargaining gains. Like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, particularly of a so-called court that wants to, be, I don't know, not seen as a partisan actor. Like, where the hell does that come from? I don't know if that is supremecourt.gov. This is from June 19. Maybe this might be something that might be only here. Supreme Court deals blow to voting rights by upholding. I don't know. That one might require, maybe that's too early, maybe it's too new a story, or it's something else. But it seems like Yahoo News is the only one who's reporting that. And until I hear more people reporting it, I don't know if it's legit. So let's hope not. Alan West over the weekend caught COVID, says he has pneumonia. This is a guy who's a big-time Trump sycophant. He is now running. He was once with the GOP. He was once out of Florida, actually. He then became a part of the GOP and conservative in Texas, and now he's running for governor. Texas Republican gubernatorial candidate Alan West, who is not vaccinated against COVID-19, tweeted on Saturday that he may... What is this here? I cannot see that. Hold on a second. See if I can get rid of all that. Okay. He said, who has not been vaccinated, tweeted on Saturday that he may be admitted to the hospital after a chest x-ray showed he has pneumonia caused by the virus. There's a concern about my oxygen saturation levels, which are at 89 and they should be at 95. One of the things people don't realize or don't seem to understand, that COVID, that by the time you are admitted to the hospital and are really severe, you probably have had the virus for a while and don't realize it because you're not having the normal issues with breathing. You know, people think that you get COVID and immediately you start huffing and puffing and you start, having these issues with breathing. What really kills you and what really is the problem and is the issue is your oxygen saturation level. So it is the amount of air that's in your blood, and by the time you get to the point where you're actually feeling like you can't breathe, your blood oxygen saturation has gotten so low that this is why it is a slow burn virus. Is because by the time you actually feel an issue, it's almost too late. I mean, you have to be put on what they call an ECMO device, which helps get oxygen into the blood. But so this guy tweeted about this or sent a message about this over the weekend saying, I was tested positive with COVID, but I feel fine. I'm just going to chill at home. I have to sequester myself, but no big deal. Now today, they've actually looked at his oxygen saturations level, and they found it is low. My chest x-rays do show COVID pneumonia, not serious. I'm probably going to be admitted to the hospital. Earlier in the day, West campaign tweeted that his wife, who is vaccinated against COVID-19, had tested positive for the virus on Friday. In that tweet thread, the campaign said that he was experiencing a low-grade fever and light body aches, and that he was canceling in-person events until he was in the clear. In the same thread, the campaign also said that West was taking hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. The FDA has said both drugs can cause serious health problems for people who take the drug to help treat COVID-19. Hydroxychloroquine is an anti-malaria drug that the FDA has said has no benefit for decreasing the likelihood of death or speedy recovery. Ivermectin is a drug used to treat parasites in animals and humans. The FDA has said that currently available data does not show ivermectin is effective against COVID-19. West tweeted that he and his wife both completed monoclonal antibody treatment and were in the observation period. West campaign said in a tweet that he believes getting vaccinated against COVID-19 should be a personal choice. So, we'll see how things happen. The last black guy who decided that COVID was a hoax and decided that they wanted to remain in Donald Trump's good graces and continue to do events and all this kind of stuff. The last guy who did that was named Herman Cain and is now named the late Herman Cain. So, these black guys, they think that they can run around, they can do what these other folks do, but they're going to be surely or sorely mistaken, I think. So let's get back to this whole thing with regard to the rally over the weekend and really the concern that people who were in the Trump administration, and these guys are professional in this field, they, in one case, like I say, Fiona Hill, who's coming out with a book or has a book out right now, she is very concerned about what she's seeing, what she should be. She, like I said earlier, her family, and she came to this country because she knows very much and very well about what it's like to have authoritarians and to come from authoritarian regimes. And she is sort of sounding the alarm so that you can't say nobody knew, basically, that this stuff was happening and this thing was building up. And she went on Face the Nation. She's doing her book tour, but she's also, I think, doing a service by pointing out what she's seeing in real time. And I'm going to play that clip. Also, for reference, this begins with a Chris Krebs clip. Chris Krebs, people may remember or not remember, was also a part of the Trump administration. He was the guy who was their election security. He was the guy who, after the election, came out and said, I might get fired. I'm probably going to get fired for saying this, but this was the safest election ever. And, of course, he was immediately fired by Donald Trump. So Chris Krebs has become another one who's out there now, who is sounding the alarms about the things that he's seeing and the things that are very concerning. And, not for nothing, but I don't think enough people are really concerning themselves with regard to this. So I'm going to play that. This is Face the Nation over the weekend.
Talking about politics, you ran the rumor control site for the 2020 election. In your previous role, when you were within Homeland Security, what you said and the work you did on that is one of the reasons why President Trump fired you. Last night, he again stood at a rally in Iowa and called for the complete overhaul of our election systems. These calls are not going away. Do you think that there is an active effort underway to undermine elections, as Congressman Schiff started off our program saying?
Without question, it's happening at 4 different levels, both state legislatures and state elected officials, some of the folks running for Secretary of State in Arizona and Georgia, but we're also seeing in the U.S. Congress. The minority whip was on Fox News this morning with Chris Wallace, and he was talking about how the election was effectively stolen. And he will not admit that President Biden won fair and square. And so what we're seeing is Congressman Schiff mentioned, is this constant erosion of confidence in the electoral system, and it is ultimately anti-democratic. And we're frankly in a death spiral, as I see it. And 2 years, 4 years at the ballot box isn't good enough, and there have to be other accountability measures for those that are going to continue to proliferate these lies. One
of the things that I think is interesting is that you were an intelligence analyst. So you can apply that critical eye to this country, just like you would a foreign country. So when you apply it to the United States right now, you use terms like the politics of cultural despair, fertile ground for populist politics. How dangerous is this moment?
I think the moment is incredibly dangerous. I mean, we are in a dangerous moment. People are talking about a prospective constitutional crisis. We're already in it. I mean, I was listening very attentively to what Chris Krebs is saying, somebody who I worked with extremely closely. And when Chris had to basically call out domestic threats to the election during the 2020 presidential election, it should have been obvious to everyone. He was the Department of Homeland Security. His whole job was to push back against external threats, not against domestic actors who were trying to undermine the integrity of the election or to cast doubt on it. When he had to speak out in public in the way that he did, it should have been an alarm bell to anyone watching.
In the book Peril, Robert Costa and Bob Woodward wrote, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, at the end of it, is quoted as comparing the January 6th siege of the Capitol to the Great Dress Rehearsal. You're a Russia analyst. You know exactly immediately what that phrase is, which is what Lenin called an uprising that preceded the revolution. I read that and I said, dear God.
Yeah.
I mean, the general is saying that this is a precursor potentially to further violence. I mean, is this overstating things in a historical sense?
He's not overstating it at all, because, I mean, we all saw in real time what happened on January 6th at the Capitol building. And General Milley was absolutely right. Any student of history, but any observer of even American politics over the last decade, I mean, when have we seen something like this before? We haven't. Not in our lifetimes. We've seen episodes, particularly during the civil rights movement and, of course, during Vietnam, where there were protests, but storming the Capitol building of the United States. I mean, this is exactly the thing that you think of historically in revolutions, storming the Bastille during the French Revolution, storming the Winter Palace during the Russian Revolution that General Milley was alluding to. And as he was saying, we've seen many historical episodes where there is violence, people discount it, they think that this is just a passing occurrence. Vice President Pence has been downplaying it. Even though he would have been targeted, he was targeted. They wanted to lynch him. And then, people sweeping this away, saying nothing happened here. And the next time around, you get the real thing where people actually do seize those major buildings. And I said that also in the book, that this was, in effect, a dress rehearsal for something that could be happening near term in 2022, 2024. We've got election cycles here that will heighten the tensions. And once people start talking about violence, once a threshold is crossed, we're in a danger zone.
So Krebs calls it a death spiral. Hill quoting Milley, or I think one of the generals, I think it was Milley, the great dress rehearsal. She goes on to say, it's not overstating things. We're in a danger zone. Fiona Hill, this is a woman who knows all about this march towards authoritarianism. They are sending the alarm bells, ringing the alarm bells. And, what is anybody doing about it? And by the way, this thing is so serious that, all hands need to be on deck. Anybody who loves democracy, loves this country, is a patriot and all these kinds of stuff. Not just you're a patriot because you went to war and you fought, for this country, but you actually believe in what this country stands for. Anybody who believes that, anybody and everybody, and I'm talking about business, I'm talking about the media, I'm talking about politicians, I'm talking about anybody and everybody who believes this, needs to get behind the whole idea of, starting to do something about this and getting in line with what's happening right now. And I think that if you sit back and you don't do anything, and in particular the media, if you sit back and you don't do anything, and you try and act like this is business as usual, it is to the great detriment of this country and of everything that we believe in. I just think that, it cannot be overstated anymore. And anybody who prevents this from happening, anyone who prevents the country and prevents us from being able to fight back against these people, against Donald Trump, against his allies, against the lies, against all these kinds of things, they're a part of the problem. And there's reporting already, January 6th, these guys, Steve Bannon, the white nationalist, the other members of Mark Meadows, other members of Trump's administration, they are ignoring subpoenas. They're just ignoring the subpoenas. They're just basically going, oh, well, the last president said I didn't have to listen to it, so I'm not going to. It's stunning. So, of course, and what I keep hearing from the media is, well, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? What are you, the media, going to do about it? People need to sit back and people need to get out there, and particularly the media, who has the ability to vocalize this and get this out there. They need to be out there letting people know this is what's happening. So it's not just enough that we expect our politicians, the Democrats, forget about it. I've already said, if Manchin and Sinema would sit back and allow or prevent, actually allow, really, not just prevent, but allow by not doing a carve-out for the filibuster, which at one point Manchin was for. Manchin at one point was for this early on when it looked like Democrats were going to get power. He was immediately for doing something about the a carve-out, a so-called carve-out for the filibuster, making it a talking filibuster, making them, have to get, do whatever you have to do. But there are ways and mechanisms and means to undo the filibuster and to create ways for people to get through. Mitch McConnell would, and Mitch McConnell did when it came to judges. That shows how concerned, that shows how important judges are to him. But when it comes to, this other stuff, listen, Democrats need to be that focused, and anybody who stops that, whether it's Sinema or a Manchin or the leadership in the Senate, that they don't put maximum pressure, whether it's Joe Biden or even if it's progressives, because they don't get everything that they want out of it, that they don't do everything that they can to be, to get this thing through. It's on their backs right now. It is on their time, on their hour that Donald Trump is gearing up and his team is gearing up. Now, what's interesting to me is that it seems to me that Donald Trump is rallying too soon, and I believe that this is, of course, because of Chuck Grassley, because Chuck Grassley is running, and he wants to he needs that endorsement, and he wants to be reelected. So this is, of course, all a ploy and a play for him. That guy's old as dirt too, which is very interesting. But this is really about the fact that Chuck Grassley really wants to go back to the Senate. And he is out there and he's joining this rally. And I actually am beginning to really wonder if Donald Trump is not peaking too soon. Because he's only been out of office for 6 months? Seems pretty early to be doing a rally for 2024 now. And there's a whole lot of other stuff that could come and that will come. And I think that there's a whole lot of impatience that's going to happen for Donald Trump supporters. Like, they're going to want him. The more he goes out there and rallies and riles them up about how the election was stolen and all this kind of business, I think the more they're going to want him back. And we know the Republican Party really doesn't have a purpose other than to get Donald Trump back into office. So, I think that people need to take this seriously. When you look at this rally, when you look at the throngs of people, when you look at the groups, although you've got this guy, Blacks for Trump, I think that guy's been to every one of the rallies. So you don't know how many of these guys are actors, or what they call, crisis actors on the right when they talk about, stuff. This guy is like central casting. That's what Trump calls them. But, you don't know what the hell they're going to, how much longer they're going to be able to just sit back and just sort of ignore what's happening or sit back and just allow Biden to continue his agenda, allow Democrats to continue their agenda, and not want to attack. And if January 6th is any indication, the way this committee is working is any indication that they are refusing to push subpoenas, to lock people up, to lock them in chains, to send them out, if that's any indication, then this is not a good thing. The seriousness at which they're taking it. So let's hope that for democracy's sake, Democrats get more serious.